Good afternoon. I want to, good morning still, reconvene the Subcommittee on Federal Workforce, U.S. Postal Service, and Labor Policy. In the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. And I'd like to recognize one of our first panelists, the gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Coble, for 5 minutes on his bill.
Chairman Ross, I thank you and your fellow members of the subcommittee for having called this hearing. Reforming congressional pensions is long overdue. From the feedback that I've received over the years, Mr. Chairman, this program is unpopular with many taxpayers. When I first ran for office in 1984, I told citizens of the 6th District of North Carolina that if elected, I would not participate in the congressional pension program. Not my most brilliant financial decision, I might add, and would work to reform the system. North Carolina has a similar system back home, and I've rejected that as well. For this reason, Mr. Chairman, I believe the taxpayers pay our salary. I don't know that they need to pay our pensions. Over the years, I've tried unsuccessfully to change the congressional pension program. I've introduced bills to abolish the system and to make it equal to the pension that all federal employees receive. All of these past efforts died quickly and quietly. So for the 112th Congress, I tried a new approach. My bill would lengthen the time of service required before a member of Congress would be eligible for participation in the pension program. This legislation, H.R. 2652, extends the time required, as is the case now, from 5 years to 12 years before a member is vested in an annuity under the federal employees' retirement system. In order to avoid any constitutional concerns, the bill would only apply to members who have not yet been elected to serve in the Congress. Extending the required years of service from 5 to 12 years was a logical calculation. It is the equivalent of 2 terms in the Senate, or 6 terms in the House, or a combination of each of the 2. It is also important to note, Mr. Chairman, that H.R. 2652 has no impact on other federal employees. During the past few years, many workers and retirees in America have lost their pensions due to bankruptcy or to the stock market. In my view, the decision to participate in the congressional pension program is a personal one between the representative and his or her constituents. H.R. 2652 does not interfere with that relationship. It simply raises the bar of eligibility for members seeking a federal annuity. I think the bar should be raised, and considering the current economy, I think doing so now would be received very well by the American taxpayers. I'm not patting myself on the back. Well, maybe I am, but I'm patting you on the back as well, Mr. Chairman, you and your members, for having called this hearing, because many people in this town don't want any discussion directed to pensions. They want the status quo to remain intact, and I think that's probably, in my opinion, that's a mistake. I appreciate your consideration for H.R. 2652 and hope that you will support this legislation so that we can begin the process of improving the congressional pension program. Mr. Chairman, in closing, I don't know of any pension situation that vests after only 5 years. I think it's overly generous, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's so unpopular among taxpayers in America. And I thank you again, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Coble. I appreciate your time today. Now recognize the gentleman from Arkansas' 2nd Congressional District, Mr. Griffin, for 5 minutes.
Chairman, may I be excused?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Airport.
Have a safe trip home, Mr. Coble.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate
it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Ranking Member Lynch for inviting me to testify on my bill, H.R. 3480, the End Pensions in Congress, or EPIC Act. My top priority in Congress is to encourage private sector job creation, especially through finding ways that the government can live within its means. I believe the EPIC Act helps to achieve this goal. Americans are demanding bold and real change from Washington, and I believe my proposal meets that test. And as I hear a lot when I'm back in my district in Arkansas, it's something that my constituents really don't think we'll ever do. On November 18, 2011, I introduced the EPIC Act, which would end the congressional pension plan for future members of Congress and recently elected members who have not yet vested. So if you're here like me and you haven't been here 5 years, then it would end the pension for you as well as new members of Congress. If you have already vested, then you have the opportunity to opt in if you want to stay in the system, and then it won't impact you. I thought that was only fair for the people who had been here for some time to leave the rules of the game as they were when they got here. For me, this is not a moral judgment. I personally, like Congressman Coble, decided not to participate in the congressional pension program. I did that because I ran on it. But this is not a moral judgment for me, and I don't ask that folks necessarily share my view on whether to take the pension in order to support the EPIC Act. I would love to provide members with pensions, but for me, it's just a matter of the bottom line, and that is that we can't afford it. Our national debt has topped $15 trillion, going to $16 trillion, and the federal government borrows 42 cents for every dollar it spends. And I recognize that ending congressional pensions alone will not fix our debt problems. In fact, it won't even significantly reduce our federal spending. I get that. But I believe it is the gateway, if you will. It is the necessary starting point for reforming the Federal Employees Retirement Program more broadly, FERS, as we call it. Congress must lead by example and cannot credibly tackle FERS without first reforming our own federally funded benefits. Many of my constituents have told me they support ending congressional pensions and pensions for future federal employees because they know those combined, not just focusing on the congressional, but those combined will save the American taxpayers hundreds of billions of dollars. The private sector has already realized that defined benefit pension plans for employees are a thing of the past. This realization came at a cost with the failure of the pension programs of some of America's biggest companies. Take, for example, United Airlines and Delphi Corporations. Both of these companies' pension programs were turned over to the Pension Benefit Guarantee Corporation. And now some participants in those programs receive reduced payments. If you look at what the private sector gets in terms of private sector employees and their benefits, and what we get in the federal government, what we get is generous by any standard. Most private sector employers do not provide pension benefits. Some provide TSPs with a 3% match. We get a 5% match. The federal government is currently projected to contribute about $25 billion to FERS in 2012. By 2025, there's a $750 billion deficit. If we do not adjust these benefits for future recipients, our retired federal employees may be faced with potential cuts to their benefits. We've already seen this in Greece, where the current financial crisis has resulted in a 20% cut in pensions. So the bottom line is this. It's not a choice between leaving things the same or changing and reforming the system. We either have to reform the system or eventually benefits are going to be cut for people currently relying on them. I ask for your support with my bill. I think it's a first step toward reforming pensions more broadly. I think it's about time we did it. Thank you for having me here today. I look forward to working with you on it.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. Now recognize the gentleman from Colorado's 6th Congressional District, Mr. Kaufman, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Lynch. I had the honor of serving in both the United States Army and the Marine Corps. And the Congress of the United States have the opportunity to serve on the House Armed Services Committee. And I think Admiral Mullen, when he was Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, testified before the Congress that the greatest threat to U.S. security is our national debt. He didn't say it was al-Qaeda. He didn't say it was North Korea or Iran. He said it was an internal problem, and that is America's national debt. We in the Congress are going to have to exercise extraordinary leadership in navigating this country out of our debt crisis. And in doing so, we're going to have to ask the American people to make sacrifices, to include federal employees and even our military. And so it is about leadership. And if there's one thing I learned in both the United States Army and the Marine Corps, about leadership. It was leading by example. Never ask anyone to do anything that you yourself would not be willing to do. And so I believe that the Congress of the United States has to lead by example to give us the credibility to attack these very difficult issues. And last September, I introduced House Resolution 2913. And what House Resolution 2913 does is that it in effect ends the Congressional Pension Program. It does so by honoring all accrued benefits that members have earned under this program, but not allowing any more benefits to accrue. Members of Congress pay in 1.3% of their salary into this pension program. It's a factor of 1.7% is the benefit they accrue for the first 20 years, 1% thereafter. And so what it would say is that we'll honor anything that's been accrued up to the effective date of the bill. And for those members who are not vested yet, it takes 5 years to be vested, then they would certainly get that 1.3% refunded to them. I believe that the founding fathers of this country envisioned a Congress where its members came from other professions to serve in the Congress and didn't see the Congress as a career in and of itself where they would be reliant upon the taxpayers of the United States to provide them a pension for the rest of their lives. And so I feel that this also fits in that vision by doing away with the defined benefit pension program. We would still have a defined contribution pension program that is available to all Federal employees, whereby members can put up to $17,000 into the defined contribution pension plan and have a 5% match of their salary that is matched by the taxpayers of the United States. And I think this is more in line with what our private sector counterparts get all across America. And so, again, I think this is about leading by example. This is about Congress making a sacrifice to show the American people that we have skin in the game with them during these challenging economic times. Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Lynch, I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Griffin.
I just want to ask permission be allowed to go catch my plane.
Sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Griffin. The gentleman from the 17th Congressional District of Illinois, Mr. Schilling, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Ross and Ranking Member Lynch. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to testify. When I came to Congress, there was several different issues to discuss, and what I did was I put together a bill. It's 2397, H.R. 2397. I call it the Congressional Retirement Age Act. It's a bipartisan money-saving piece of legislation that provides an opportunity for Congress to lead by example. And in Congress, we often talk about what we can do today to make things better for our kids and our grandkids. To achieve this, I think we're going to have to make some tough decisions and then some easy decisions. The Congressional Retirement Age Act represents a small, common-sense step we can take towards reevaluating the pensions that the members of Congress are eligible to receive. When I ran for office, I made a contract with the people of the 17th District of Illinois, and one of the elements of this contract was to reject the congressional pension. This was a personal decision rooted in the belief that our founders did not set Congress up to be a career, and I'm not here to preach to anyone. My goal is to advocate for good policy change, basically. As you know, members of Congress are eligible to receive a pension at the age of 62 after 5 years of Federal service. However, if a member has served for 25 years, they can receive it as early as age 50. I can tell you that I've talked to many of my constituents about this issue and am hard-pressed to recall one person that believes Congress should receive a pension, let alone as early as age 50. And this especially rings true when you consider that the earliest that folks back home can retire and receive their Social Security benefits is age 65. The first bill I introduced as a member of Congress is H.R. 2397. It simply ties a member of Congress' eligibility to receive pension benefits to the Social Security retirement age. Regardless of whether or not you believe Congress should be getting a pension, I hope that we can all agree that members of Congress who do elect to receive the pension benefits should not be able to do so before their constituents across can access Social Security benefits. I believe that this was a bipartisan effort with 26 co-sponsors in the House, and then Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio has spearheaded the effort in the Senate. The Congressional Retirement Age Act has the support of the National Taxpayers Union and the Taxpayers Protection Alliance. According to a preliminary CBO staff estimate, this legislation would save $10 to $15 million over 10 years. This is real money at a time when we are facing a national debt of more than $15 trillion. All the cost savings we can get definitely count. Again, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to speak on this legislation today, and I would also like to thank Chairman Ross and Congressman Chavez for co-sponsoring H.R. 2397. I'd welcome the support of all of the members of Congress in this bill and look forward to working together and hope that we can advance the Congressional Retirement Age Act.
Thank you, Mr. Schilling.
And I also have a
plane to catch.
Yeah.
Have a safe trip.
Thank you very much. Have
Thank
a great
you for
one.
taking the time. The gentleman from Florida's 5th Congressional District, my colleague, Mr. Nugent, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the committee, and particularly you, Chairman Ross, and Ranking Member Lynch, for allowing us to speak here today. You know, I came to D.C. in 2010 as a new member at Orientation Week like everybody else. I met with the Benefits Office to talk about the health care benefits, the Thrift Savings Plan, and other pension plans. During that meeting, I turned down the health insurance plan. I didn't think that I should have better benefits than anybody at the Sheriff's Office where I just retired. I did that because I believe I'm here representing the people of the 5th District, Congressional District of Florida. I'm not here to enrich myself, but rather serve my community, my neighbors, and my nation. That's why to this day my wife and I buy health insurance, which we pay for out of our own pocket. This decision cost us over $10,000 a year. During that meeting, I also tried to opt out of the Congressional Pension Fund fears for the same reason. I also asked if there was a way to contribute to the Thrift Savings Plan without getting a government match for my investment. Frankly, I was shocked when the benefits representative told me that I was legally required to accept congressional pension as long as I was here for at least 5 years. Similarly, I couldn't contribute to the TSP without receiving a federal match of up to 5%. Even more, if I didn't put a single penny, not a single penny into the TSP, the government would still contribute to the match of 1% of my salary without any cost to me. Once I was sworn in, I dug into this issue further to try to figure out why. Exactly, I was legally prohibited from choosing not to participate in the federal employee retirement system. What I found out was until 2004, members of Congress could opt out to decline coverage under the federal employee retirement system. In fact, to this day, anybody elected to this body before September 30th of 2003 continues to be able to decline the federal employee retirement system coverage. It's only members of the House of Representatives, not even senators, entering office of September 30th of 2003, who are legally obligated to participate in a federal employee retirement system. Why are senators allowed to opt out and not representatives? Why are folks elected before September 30th of 2003 allowed to opt out at this time, but not after that date? And frankly, I really don't know. What I do know is this. I was a cop for 38 years, and for the last 10 of those years, I was sheriff of Hernando County, Florida. That was my career. And what I'm doing here in the House of Representatives is serving my country. As I see it, you get a pension for your career, not for your service. Congress is not and will never be my career. That's why I introduced H.R. 981, Congress is not a career act. This bill would simply put members of Congress like me, elected to House of Representatives after September of 2003, on the same footing as those folks that were here longer than us. I want to make it clear that Congress is not a career act, does not require anybody to give up a pension. Additionally, supporting my bill does not commit you to opting out of the Federal Employee Retirement Fund. It simply says that you will have a choice. H.R. 981 gives members the choice of participating in a thrift savings plan without receiving the Federal match. Again, the bill doesn't require anybody to do something, nor does it prohibit anybody from participating in anything. It simply says that members should have the option to invest in their future without having the taxpayers contribute to that investment. As you all may know, all three of my sons are on active duty members in the United States Army. They and their brothers and sisters of arms also have the TSP program that they can contribute to. However, the majority of service members do not receive any type of Federal match for their TSP contribution. I can't fathom receiving a TSP match while my kids and other service members fighting for our freedoms don't get a match of their own. The Congress is not correct. It's not about denying anybody benefits they're rightly entitled to. It's about allowing those of us who don't view this institution as a career and don't think we should get a pension for serving our country, who don't think we should be enriching ourselves while sitting in the People's House, the ability to opt out of the Federal Employee Retirement System and the Federal match to our thrift savings plan. I was amazed that you become vested in the Federal system after simply 5 years. With that, I really want to thank this committee for listening to all of us today in regards to how we can restructure and bring sanity back to the Federal Government. When we're in an all-time low, it is about us acting to restore faith in this body that we so proudly serve, the public of this United States. And with that, I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you, Mr. Nugent. Now I'll recognize the gentleman from Illinois' 10th Congressional District, Mr. Dold, for 5 minutes.
Well, I certainly want to thank the committee and Chairman Ross. Thank you for holding the hearing. Ranking Member Lynch, thank you. I'm here today to talk a little bit about the Congressional Integrity and Pension Forfeiture Act, which is really an expansion of a law that was signed, the Honest Leadership and Open Government Act, in 2007. And while you have a copy of my statement, what I thought I'd do is just summarize the gist of it and why we're putting forth this bipartisan piece of legislation. Right now, you have the ability to, if you are a felon, to receive a pension from the taxpayers of the United States. Congressional Research Service has said over the past 50 years that we've had members of Congress that have been convicted of at least 16 different felonies, including receiving illegal gratuities, bribery, conspiracy, extortion, income tax evasion, embezzlement, theft of public funds, and yet these individuals would be eligible to receive a pension, at least until 2007. And that law became the law of the land. Unfortunately, it only covers members of Congress while currently serving. We have had other instances, and other instances more recently in the state of Illinois, where we have had former members of Congress that have gone on to hold elective office and become, and I believe should be held to a higher standard by their constituents, that have violated the law and become felons, and yet they're still eligible to receive their pensions from the American taxpayer. I think this is wrong. I think that if you violate a public trust and commit a felony under the certain areas that have been expanded, that you should forfeit that pension. Right now we're talking about not a big sum of money. It's about $800,000 a year that, if this law were to have been enacted, would not have to be paid out to former members of Congress. I think this is a common sense piece of legislation, one that should pass the House by 435 votes and pass the Senate unanimously. We continually hear about how Congress is passing laws that are not holding themselves up to that law first and foremost. And I hear that back in my district regularly, and I'm confident that most of you do as well. We need to be held, I think, to a higher standard. And if we violate that public trust, we should absolutely have skin in the game to say we will not be able to receive taxpayer-funded pensions for the remainder of our lives. Now, I recognize that there's some misconceptions about what the pensions are out there for members of Congress, that you invest in 5 years and then it's 1.7%. So it's not a huge sum of money. But what it does do is it lets the American public know that we indeed in this body will hold ourselves to a higher standard. This is an expansion of the already existing Honest Leadership and Open Government Act. I think it makes a lot of sense. It's one that I think that we should act on actually immediately, and I don't want to belabor the point. So I'm happy to answer your questions, and thank you again for the opportunity to join you.
Thank you, Mr. Dold. And in the interest of time and pursuant to a previous agreement, we will not be asking questions of the members. But I believe, Mr. Connolly, you would like to make a statement?
No, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you for all the hearing. I just wanted to participate. I'm very interested in hearing our colleagues, and certainly will take their proposals under advisement. I continue to believe, on the broader point, in terms of public service, we have fine, upstanding civil servants who serve this country, whether they wear the uniform or they don't. And I would hope that we here in Congress, as we talk about benefits and compensation, provide the dignity and respect those civil servants have earned, and that we make sure that we take care to ensure that their compensation is fair and reflects that dignity and respect. And with that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. I want to thank the members for appearing today, and thank you for your efforts, and look forward to working with you on these pieces of legislation. This subcommittee now stands adjourned. Thank you.